So our goal for today is to get to know ourselves a little better, answer some tough questions like who am I, and just get a different perspective on self-awareness. So to start off, we need to answer the basic question of what even is self-awareness. And self-awareness is simply the ability to recognize your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, what motivates you, your values. So basically, just having a clear picture of what you stand for, what you mean, and, you know, facing those awkward situations of knowing your weaknesses or knowing your strengths. So just facing the facts about yourself. So, an easy way to understand or remember or check to see if you're self aware is by breaking it down into some simple questions like, do I know myself? Do I take the time to reflect on my thoughts? And do I ever take the time to consider how my actions affect others? And when you're asking yourself these questions, the answer isn't always going to be pretty, but it truly demonstrates a sense of self awareness if you're dealing with these uncomfortable questions and getting those raw, like, answers. And lastly, you have to ask yourself, am I taking care of myself? Am I regulating? And what I mean by that is, do I know how to control my emotions? Do I know how to manage my actions? So, just taking the time and reflecting on yourself is a key component to being self aware. Some widely known benefits for self aware is that you're able to make more informed decisions, which are more lined up to what you believe and your values. It also increases your ability on how you communicate. And if you're communicating better and expressing yourself better, then you're more likely to build relationships with more meaning to them. And people with high self-awareness are more prone of being acceptive of themselves. They have more confidence and they have emotional health that is far much better than others. So who wouldn't want that? Uh, so I think a tricky part about self-awareness is the part where we need to know ourselves, as silly as that may sound. But it can be difficult because you'll ask yourself, am I the same person that I was yesterday or a week ago or a year ago? Do I still hold those same values? Do I still feel the same about the goals I set last year or when I started here at TCBC, even through the different like journey, like the highs or the lows or whatever you may have experienced? So I think self-awareness definitely has a strong connection to knowing ourselves and acknowledging the changes, which of course is going to tap into identity. So my question for you all is, if every part of an object is replaced over time, is it still the same object? So I'll let you all think, and you can either unmute yourself or type it in the chat, and then we'll just share our different perspectives on this question. So I'm getting no, it becomes a different version, and then I also got a yeah, it's the same object. It depends, but it's up to the perceiver and their memory of the object and if it's the same to them. Okay. Depends on how you look at it. Yes or no. Could be both answers, yeah. I'm not sure. That's kind of a toughie. I know all our cells replace themselves about every 7 years. Okay, we're getting technical. Yeah. So I feel like the same way you guys are. When I asked myself this question, I was like, Well, if it's changing, is it still the same? Um, but I feel like if it has the same core beliefs, then it is kind of the same object. Same object, different entity. Okay, okay. So yeah, there is no concrete answer to this question. No object is really static. Yeah, so there's no concrete answer to this question. You can perceive it however you want to perceive it. There's no wrong or right answer. Um, but we're gonna watch a video, and I want you guys to think, because it had me thinking a lot. Like it raised a lot of questions about who am I? Which, in order to be self-aware, remember that we have to have an understanding of who we are. So the video is about 4 minutes, and while watching the video, I ask if you can consider some questions like what makes us who we are? Is our identity constant or fluid? And how can we keep changing but still feel like ourselves? So when we come back, we'll just talk about it, but let me pull up the video now.
Throughout the history of mankind, three little words have sent poets to the blank page, philosophers to the agora, and seekers to the oracles. Who am I? From the ancient Greek aphorism inscribed on the Temple of Apollo, Know thyself, to the Who's Rock anthem, Who Are You? Philosophers, psychologists, academics, scientists, artists, theologians, and politicians have all tackled the subject of identity. Their hypotheses are widely varied and lack significant consensus. These are smart, creative people. So what's so hard about coming up with the right answer? One challenge certainly lies with the complex concept of the persistence of identity. Which you is who? The person you are today, 5 years ago, who you'll be in 50 years? And when is am? This week? Today? This hour? This second? And which aspect of you is I? Are you your physical body, your thoughts and feelings, your actions? These murky waters of abstract logic are tricky to navigate, and so it's probably fitting that to demonstrate the complexity, the Greek historian Plutarch used the story of a ship. How are you I? As the tale goes, Theseus, the mythical founder-king of Athens, single-handedly slayed the evil Minotaur at Crete, then returned home on a ship. To honor this heroic feat, for 1,000 years Athenians painstakingly maintained his ship in the harbor, and annually reenacted his voyage. Whenever a part of the ship was worn or damaged, it was replaced with an identical piece of the same material, until at some point, no original parts remained. Plutarch noted the ship of Theseus was an example of the philosophical paradox revolving around the persistence of identity. How can every single part of something be replaced, yet it still remains the same thing? Let's imagine there are two ships. The ship that Theseus docked in Athens, Ship A, and the ship sailed by the Athenians 1,000 years later, Ship B. Very simply, our question is this: does A equal B? Some would say that for 1,000 years there has been only one ship of Theseus, and because the changes made to it happened gradually, it never at any point in time stopped being the legendary ship. Though they have absolutely no parts in common, the two ships are numerically identical, meaning one and the same, so A equals B. However, others could argue that Theseus never set foot on Ship B, and his presence on the ship is an essential qualitative property of the ship of Theseus. It cannot survive without him. So, though the two ships are numerically identical, they are not qualitatively identical. Thus, A does not equal B. But what happens when we consider this twist? What if, as each piece of the original ship was cast off, somebody collected them all and rebuilt the entire original ship. When it was finished, undeniably, two physical ships would exist, the one that's docked in Athens and the one in some guy's backyard. Each could lay claim to the title, the Ship of Theseus, but only one could actually be the real thing. So which one is it? And more importantly, what does this have to do with you? Like the Ship of Theseus, you are a collection of constantly changing parts. Your physical body, mind, emotions, circumstances, and even your quirks, always changing, but still, in an amazing and sometimes illogical way, you stay the same too. This is one of the reasons that the question, who am I, is so complex. And in order to answer it, like so many great minds before you, you must be willing to dive into the bottomless ocean of philosophical paradox. Or maybe you could just answer, I am a legendary hero sailing a powerful ship on an epic journey. That could work too.
Okay, I hope that got you thinking. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So let's talk about it. So do you guys want to answer them in order? Do you have any comments before we answer them? Do you want to answer them randomly? Doesn't matter to me. Okay, so we'll do the first one. So what insights can we gain about our identity from the Ship of Theseus story?
So what I got from the insight was kind of interesting because it didn't really appear in my mind until they talk about the ship and talk about replacing each part of it, even though that was your problem question earlier, but now it was more in depth. It's kind of like Goats in Crisis about if that original thing or not. But I still think that if there's still a piece of it that's still there originally, then I guess it still haven't changed. But like I said, if it's like, for example, if you break something and then you repair it or you add another part to it, it's still the same object. I mean, it may be new again, but it's still the same thing, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you, Benedict.
I
Think
guess
it all.
it it matters how you assign the value of that object. Like if you value the object for what it does versus what it actually is or what it's made out of, that kind of defines what it is.
Yeah. Thank you. I guess we'll go on to the next question. In what ways does having a fluid identity impact our self-awareness? I have something in the chat actually. The self is constantly in flux, but changes doesn't overwrite every single part of the self. It's like updating a book with new additions, yeah. So it's still the same book in a way. What do you guys think about the second question?
I think that change impacts our self-awareness in a positive way, being that you need to change in order to grow as a person. You can't be stagnant and still expect to grow in any aspect.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I was gonna echo what Katie said, which I agree kind of had to do with aspect of herself. But I feel like as our identity is changing, we start to realize the minor flaws and the major flaws that we have in ourselves. And it's up and it does must depend of whether or not the flaw is a short term and a long term. If it's a long term, then we'll constantly have a change in identity over time. But it's a short term, that I guess that's like a problem that we work over time again compared to the long term.
Yeah, thank you. And being open to change doesn't wholly change who you are as a person, it simply changes part of us. It makes you second guess whether or not you're correct in your opinions about things because your own opinions and ideals change since these are tied to one identity. Yeah, thank you. And then the last question is, how do you navigate personal growth and change while staying true to your core values?
Can I answer this question too?
Yes.
Okay. So, um, so for me personally, I've always been the same since I was a kid. Since I was 5, I often have like the same values. But due to my environment over time, I did change, whether it's in a negative way or in a positive way, but mostly a negative way, I changed. But until I did self-evaluation, evaluating myself, my environment, until I got myself out of that environment, I wound up being myself again. So I think the way of navigating your personal growth is mostly just like constant evaluation and constant checking in with yourself as well, but also thinking about your environment and think about the people that you're surrounded with. I'm pretty sure that's the way how you can navigate your personal growth and comparing whether or not your values in the past will benefit you now or make you a person that you want to be in the future, whether it's career or life, relationship, or this, that, and the third.
I like how you use the word navigating, but in a way, if you're navigating, you're also reflecting on your actions and your environment and just how you perceive things. So that can definitely be a way to staying true to yourself, but also acknowledging the change. So thank you. Gonna go to the next slide. Oh, consider why your core values are what they are. They're like a constitution, it guides what we do, but it isn't supposed to be unchanged. Yeah, thank you. So now that we've got ourselves thinking about who am I also want to share some moments where you can kind of like pause and just recognize self-awareness. And so I made a few scenarios with some tips that are self-awareness approached, uh, focused, and it's just 6 scenarios, and there are way, 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 way many more situations that you'll be faced with in life where you can recognize self-awareness, but I think it's a good start just so we can look at them. So for scenario 1, I have you're receiving constructive feedback from your supervisor. So the first tip I have for you is to go in with an open mind and just take the time to reflect on whatever initial emotional reaction you have, because usually we'll feel things internally and then either blurt out whatever we're feeling, either if we're getting defensive or if we're happy, whatever the case may be. Remember to take the time to process it internally, and then after you've processed it, you've paused, you've reflected, then you can exhibit it externally, hopefully in a cool, calm manner. And then, depending on the feedback that you're receiving, the person who's giving you the feedback may have an external perspective that you are not able to see. So why not take this and just take it as advice? Like if someone's telling you like, "Hey, you need to work on being better at this." Okay, and you might be a little hard-headed at first like, "I don't need to do that. I know that I'm doing that right." But consider what they're saying. It might be a specific area that you do need to improve on. And then, of course, ask those questions, uh, whether it be good feedback, bad feedback, ugly feedback. Just try to see what perspective they're coming from, and don't close communication. Just try to keep it going, and you'll learn a few things about yourself, and you can always improve. Scenario two, you're facing academic challenges. For example, you just failed two exams in a row for a class that you needed for your major. No one wants to be in this situation, but we can always use self awareness for even unpleasant situations. So just take the time to acknowledge and validate whatever emotions you're feeling. Um, Maybe you're feeling defeated, you're feeling angry at yourself. So allowing yourself to feel and then moving on to the next step of reflecting on what study habits you have. Are you doing everything that you could possibly be doing? Or perhaps you'll realize, like, hey, I have been slacking and it is affecting me. Um, so it's just trying to connect the dots and going, like, retracing your steps to see why this is happening. And then, of course, if you are facing this kind of scenario where you are failing 2 exams, you should probably seek like external support, whether it be like talking to your professor, like, hey, I really do need your help, or to a classmate that's excelling in the class, or an academic advisor, or anybody, just someone who can listen to you. For the third scenario, I have that you're disagreeing with a close friend and it's turning into an argument. So, to be self aware, we should try to pause and just reflect on the situation, how we got here, and why it's happening, and any emotions that are coming on you. Try to be empathetic and understanding, like they are your friend, even though they might be upset at you or whatever the case may be. Just try to put yourself in their shoes and try to just be understanding. And we love when people listen to us speak so we can return the favor and also practice our active listening skills and just listen to what people are saying, asking questions, rephrasing what they're saying, using our body language cues. Scenario four, you're stuck in traffic, and your final exam starts in 5 minutes, but your GPS says you'll arrive in 22 minutes. So life is unpredictable, you know? So just remember to try to stay calm and breathe. You can't change certain situations that you may face in life, but what you can do is always try to remember to calm yourself down. If you can't change something right away, then just breathe, let it be. um, it's a great opportunity for you to practice some quick decision making. So whether it be your GPS is telling you like, hey, say 5 minutes taking this route, or if you know some back roads, taking them. And think about it. Your professor might be like, where is such and such? Or your classmate might be like, why aren't they coming? So I feel like just having that open communication and either like sending out a text message, don't text and drive. We all have smartphones. You could easily say like, "Hey Siri" or "Hey Bixby." Oh, I turned my "Hey Siri" on. And just sending out a quick text saying, "Hey, can you let the professor know that I'm gonna be late?" And then either at the end of the class or whenever you arrive, uh, if it's towards the end and you have a time to speak to the professor, take that time to acknowledge and respect them. And then scenario five, you're looking to buy a new laptop because your current one is slow. What you want is very expensive and you have a budget. So you're already kind of acknowledging what you need. And what you need is a laptop to succeed in school or for work. But then you also want to be realistic. Like you don't need like the newest and coolest laptop perhaps if your budget isn't allowing you to. So I think it's just thinking wisely on how to spend your money and just reflecting on just like a cause and effect sort of thing. And lastly, scenario 6, your group mate offers an idea for the project that you're working on, and you respond sarcastically, just trying to be funny. However, you make them feel discouraged. So, some tips for you is that if you know that you're sarcastic, and many people are, just try to be mindful because you never know how people are going to interpret when you speak. So just be mindful of how people react. So look out for like some body language. Do people laugh? Do people kind of look a little um, upset? I don't know, does a whole vibe change in the room? And if you're able to just kind of analyze what's going on and reflect, then you should be able to also just clarify your intentions if the room kind of changes and someone may be a little upset or discouraged. And lastly, some tips for you to develop self-awareness is to always, 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 first step is take the time to think, whether it be right before you go to bed, or maybe you're just tired of being on your phone all day or your laptop or playing games. Uh, Allow yourself some time to reflect about yourself, reflect about others, and how you could improve. You could also ask for feedback from someone you trust, as they can provide you that other half piece for self-awareness, which is also being externally aware of how others perceive you and how you're affecting others. Could also journal or type away any thoughts, any experiences, any emotions, either on a daily or a weekly basis. That way you can kind of like reflect, like, okay, this is how my week went. It could have improved, or I could have done this differently, or, sometimes we're in the shower and we're like, oh, I wish I could have said, like, you wish you could have said something differently to someone. And that's definitely a sign of being self aware. And there are millions of mindful exercises. You could mindfully walk, you can mindfully breathe, eat, listen, talk. So I have an app on my phone called Calm, and a few months ago, I went on a mindful walk, which was really interesting because you kind of put on your headphones and it's a guided walk where they kind of tell you to like be in the moment, think about every single footstep you're taking, not rushing to get to a destination. So it just kind of helps you realize like your surroundings, like what's on your mind that just keeps like replaying. And it also makes you being like conscious of your body. Like I felt like my feet and like my muscles like with every single footstep. So something to consider. Then if you don't want to, you can also go on like a search engine and look up free mindfulness exercises. Yeah. Walking and nature walks always help. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. They kind of ground you. They kind of make you feel like there is no rush. You just got to be in the moment. Kind of get to think about yourself. And to wrap up for today, just remember that to be the best version of yourself, it all starts by getting to know and understanding yourself. Remember that we're not concrete beings and that we're going to continue to change all throughout life. And that if you want to be self aware, you have to be ready to reflect. And you also have to be ready to be mindful of yourself and others. And that is all I have for you guys today. I appreciate you coming out. Does anybody have any questions?
I was gonna say you also have to be aware that can be wrong at times as well, or being self-aware.
Yeah, it's facing those ugly facts.
I feel like it needs to be said though that you can be aware of your negative features or be aware of how your interactions went throughout the day and they didn't go exactly how you planned. But it's not healthy to dwell on it. Like you mentioned, I'm in the shower reflecting, oh, I should have said this, you know, and part of mindfulness is being able to see something and then let it go because you're
Hmm.
in that moment. That moment has passed. And I think it's important to recognize that you don't have to be too hard on yourself. Being self-aware is just acknowledging that it's there, but you don't have to assign good or bad to it.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. If that's all the questions or any comments, I really do appreciate you all coming by today. I wish you the best of luck for this end of the semester. Um, and if you're graduating, congratulations. And if you're coming back next semester, I hope to see you all around. And thank you. Bye, guys.